Basically, all week long, the kids entered into this idea of wildlife. What does it mean to live a wild life for God? And we unpacked 5 major themes, all right? So it started out with beginning, and then it moved into lost, then it moved into hope, then it moved into trust, then it moved into celebration. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna unpack all of those 5 themes from John chapter 1. So if you have a Bible, open up your Bibles to John chapter 1. If you don't have a Bible, that's okay. We'll put the verses up on the screen for you, and I'll explain them to you. And then if you don't have a Bible, you can grab one on your way out. We have them at both doors, and you can just have that. It's our gift to you as a church. So we're really glad that you're here. And so now for the next few minutes, I'm just gonna unpack a lot of the ideas that the kids went through this week, but then apply them to us. And they really rise out of John chapter 1 in a significant way. And so you might be asking the question, why would a church put all this time and energy into putting on a camp like this for kids? And one of the reasons is because you read through the Gospels, you read through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the biographies about Jesus, and what you get is Jesus was here and he was doing his ministry, and then at one point in his life, he stopped, and he was in the midst of all these adults, and he took a child, and he put the child up on his lap. And he looked at all these adults like us who are worried about money and marriage and work and all these different things that we're worried about in life. And he looks out at them and he says this, he says, if you want to enter the kingdom of God, you must become like one of these. And he puts a child up in front of them. Right? It's a fascinating thing where he looks at us and he goes, I know all of us here, we've got money in the bank and our marriages are going good, we got our kids, and we don't tend to think, man, everything's going good in life. And Jesus is coming and going, man, hold on. In order to enter the kingdom of God, you need to become like a child. Like there's this humility. Like what is it about a child? A child is completely dependent. Those of you who are parents know this, completely dependent on you. All right. So many of us kind of function in an independent way. We think we've got our life together. We're not dependent on anybody. I mean, my kids are fully dependent on me. Yesterday, we literally got out of the car. We were going to get a slushie, all right? So we get out of the car and we're in a parking lot, busy, and my kids, 7, 5, and 3, just run. All right, as fast as they can. They're all over the parking lot. There's cars backing up. There's cars going forward. My kids just go, rah, Slurpee. And I'm going, kids, get to the sidewalk. What's wrong with you? There's cars everywhere. And I looked at my wife, I'm like, how have they stayed alive this long? I don't understand how my kids even made it to this age, because honestly, it's like kids wake up with this, like, how can I kill myself today? All right, that's how they think. And so they run around with scissors going, daddy. All right, it's like, what? So they're totally dependent on me to take care of them, totally. Now, here's the thing, we walk in here, we don't say to ourselves, man, I'm dependent on God to sustain me, to love me, a loving Father who made all things, to give me sunshine, to give me rain, to give me bread, to give me breath. We don't think like that, just like a child doesn't, like my kids don't walk around and go, you know, Father is the reason we're still alive. Did you know? You know, they don't tend to think, I mean, they don't speak English either, but they don't tend to think like Father is the reason, like I'm the one who has sustained. They don't, like that's not how we think, but that's how most of us walk in here. Some of us walking in here, man, you're just totally dependent. You don't need a Father that transcends your experience. You don't need a God to love you, but then the scriptures are gonna come at us and go, wait, you gotta become like a child. You gotta be humble enough to realize your own deficiencies in that you actually do need someone who transcends you, to love you, to care for you, and as we're gonna see in the first, to make you and to have a plan for your life. So the first big thing they talked about on day 1 was beginning. And in John chapter 1, verse 1, it says, in the beginning. It's a fascinating verse. In the beginning was the Word. And so what this does is it echoes back to Genesis chapter 1. And in Genesis chapter 1, there's God and he makes everything. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That he goes through these binary steps where he creates light and dark and land and sea, and then it kind of pinnacles with man and woman, these kind of opposite things, and he makes them and he puts them in the garden and he makes them in his own image, right? And they're walking with him in the cool of the day, and it's this beautiful pair, it's this perfect thing where we're in relationship with God, we're walking with him in the cool of the day, we are man, we are woman, and it's this beautiful reality that kind of undercuts the narrative of our culture, which is that everything came into being by mistake, by random chance. And here's the beautiful message that your kids heard and that you need to hear. It's that you were not a mistake. You were not the product of random chance, but there's a God who in the beginning made you out of love. He made you in his image. This has a profound effect on everything we think about origins, about life, because what it's saying is, no, there is a beginning, and God crafted you. You have value. In and of yourself, you have value. Somebody, before there was matter, listen, and this is where it cuts against most of the trending cultural popular narrative. Before there was matter, there was mind. This is why Jesus says God is spirit, that there was a beginning and God made all things, that in a particular moment in time, all energy, all time, all matter, all space, everything that exists came into existence in a moment. Now, modern cosmology says the exact same thing. It says, yes, at a particular moment in the past, all things that exist presently came into existence. I remember when I was, because I haven't been a Christian my whole life. When I was 17 years old, like many of you, right, educated. You're educated, some of you are 30, some of you are 40, some of you are 70. You're educated, you're in a post-Christian, you've done a university degree. This is where you start to get off the train of Christianity and you go, man, people still actually believe this? That there was a God and he made human beings at a particular, don't you know, man? Don't you know what cosmology says? Don't you know? I saw Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson on Fox. I know where the universe began. We don't need God anymore. And we forget to go, wait a minute, or maybe both those things can be true at the same time. And I remember me growing up, I didn't go to church till I was 19 years old. So when I finally did, because I pictured church as just filled with people who are almost ready to die, or people who are sick, or people who only hung out with their brothers and sisters. All right, those were the only friends they knew. All right, their mommy taught them math. All right, they churned their own butter. They had long denim. Right, people like people who live in Abbotsford. I pictured everyone in the church was like people who live in Abbotsford. Like, that's why I was outside the church. I didn't know. All right, so that's what I thought. And then when I got there, I was like, oh, it's fascinating because there's people here in the church that think through science, they think through psychology, they think through philosophy, and then they read the Bible, and those two things connect, and they're not opposite things. They're not opposite things. In the beginning, there was a beginning of all space, all time, all matter. It all came into existence by a mind who made, and he made us. And see, this in the beginning phrase is pregnant with potential for you. Because what it says is, in the beginning of what? In the beginning of the story that God is writing about your life. What is your story, man? What is the beginning? What is the trajectory? You have a story that God is writing about your life. What is it? What is your top priority? What is the meaning of life? Why are you here? Why do you exist on this planet? In the beginning says, hey, let's figure that out together. Some of you, you're like, you know what my highest aspiration in life is to raise my kids well. That's your goal in life. And listen, that's a valuable goal. That's a noble goal, right? We exist, like that is a huge value in our suburban culture. And I know it because, raising kids is different. I'm raising my kids vastly different than the way my parents raised me. We love our kids in a different way. My wife told me the other day, here's what I had to do. My kids wanted to get into a swim club, and in order for them to get the right swim lessons, I had to go sleep outside all night long on a Friday night, arrive at 11:30, and then sign my kid up for swimming at 8 a.m. outside. What? With 90 other morons in a line waiting to get, we were out, check this, my parents? You think my parents would have slept? Listen, I'm not a camping kind of guy. I'm of the kind of, we kind of developed as a species to a place where we built houses. Why would we go backward and start sleeping in tents and like, this is crazy. Like she's like, you gotta go sleep outside. I'm like, my kids go, we should go sleep in the backyard. I'm like, what? Last night we locked all of our doors so that no one could come in, and now you wanna go in the backyard and sleep in a tent. This doesn't even make sense. This dude walk up, zoop. Why would I sleep in a tent? So I'm not a backyard, that's not my thing. So my wife made me do that. Like, this is fascinating how much we love our kids, what we'll do for them, right? Me growing up, Like I take my kids to the movies all the time, all right? Whatever they want, I just love watching them. And it cost me $100 to go to a movie because I did 3D and 4D and popcorn everywhere. And it's like, Daddy, I want to see Rio 5. All right. So, and I love it. I watch my kids do this thing. My parents, I literally went to 3 movies growing up, 3. I went to Jurassic Park, that changed my life. I went to Home Alone, also changed my life. And then Crocodile Dundee 2, which was awful. It was awful. But anyway, so I did those. That was the extent of what my parents did. And now here I am, just, so man, you could have this aspiration in your life where your whole point is to raise your kids. And that's a good goal. And maybe you walk in here with that. But listen, that's bottom sphere. That's temporal stuff that doesn't affect 1,000 years from now. If you have a soul, which Genesis 1, 2, and 3 tells you were made in the garden and God he breathed life into you and a soul. You're not an angel, you're not an animal, you're something else altogether. And he said, let me breathe into you a soul and you will live forever. You will live forever in one of 2 states, either with God or away from him, either in pleasure or in judgment. That's the reality of life. And so you could be a good dad, that's awesome. It doesn't change 1,000 years from now what's gonna be going on in your life or your kid's life. If you don't figure out there was a beginning for a purpose. And every human being was made in the image of God, which means this: you have never met an ordinary person. Every single person you meet is extraordinary. Every single person you meet. And so there becomes this question: what is the purpose? What is the meaning? In fact, in verse 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word. In the original language, the word is logos. And literally what it means is logic or reason or meaning. And in that time, all the philosophers would debate, what is the logos of life? What is the meaning? Is it a principle? Is it an abstraction? Is it an algorithm? Is it a teaching? And here's what John now does. He says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In verse 14, it says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Here's what he's saying. The meaning of life, listen to me, is not an abstraction, it's not a teaching, it's not a philosophy, it's a person. It's a person. His name is Jesus, Jesus of Nazareth, who came, lived a perfect life in your place, went to a cross and died for your sin, rose again. And John is going, now, here's the question that you got to deal with walking out of here. What are you going to do with Jesus of Nazareth? What are you going to do with him? He's the logic, the reason for everything. And the question becomes, man, what do I do? Is he a philosopher? Is he a good teacher? Was he actually God? If he's really God, what do I do with that? In the beginning, and we were all made with this infinite value. The second day, they learned about lostness. In verse 5, it says this: the light shines in the darkness. Here's what it assumes. There's darkness. There's pain, there's tragedy, there's difficulty in your life, and every single one of us has gone through it in our lives, and if you haven't gone through it yet, you will. There's a brokenness about all of us and about humankind. This is what the Bible says. It says that we were in the garden and then we chose sin over God. God put us there and he said, you can choose from any tree you can eat from, but don't eat from the one tree. And what we did is we interpreted that like we do as restriction. We said, oh, look, what God's trying to take away our fun. He's trying to restrict us from doing something. So now I want to do it because I'm a good, I love democracy and I'm a good 21st century Canadian. If someone tells me I can't do something, that's when I want to do it. But we don't realize that it was for our own good that he restricted us. Sometimes God says, here's what I want you to do with sex. Here's what I want you to do with money. Here's what I want you to do with marriage. This is the way I've designed the universe. And when you try to wrestle it out of my hand, it's going to go bad for you and you're not going to flourish. The reason he does all these things is for our joy. The reason he does all these things is it's like when he made fish and he put it in water and he made the gills and they could breathe underwater and that's where that thing flourishes. But if a fish goes, I don't like this restriction. I want to be on land. I saw a giraffe. He wasn't in here. He was walking around. I want to be like a giraffe. What happens to a fish? He flops up there and he withers and he dies. We go, I'm not happy I want to be God. I want to know what I'm not supposed, I want to get outside this restriction. And we flip and we spiritually, here's what Jesus constantly said, all right? Just be offended by this, but don't be offended by this. Jesus would tell stories where he would say, do you know what the state of humankind is? It's very unique. He said, lost. And he told stories. Read Luke 15 where he said, there's a lost coin, there's a lost son, there's a lost sheep. And he said, every single one of us from that garden moment got disconnected from God spiritually, and we're spiritually lost. We're spiritually broken. We're spiritually far from God. We don't know him. Now, some of you might go, well, why would you tell kids about brokenness and lostness? Why would you tell kids that they're spiritually far from God? Isn't that mean? What would be the point of it? And I was thinking about that question because years ago, someone wrote to C.S. Lewis and challenged his story. You know, C.S. Lewis wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, and he would write children's stories. And they said, you shouldn't tell children, you know, about death and fighting and all these negative. You shouldn't do those stories with children. They can't handle it. You need to just tell them nice things. And C.S. Lewis responded to that. And he said this. He said, some think we must try to keep out of the child's mind the knowledge that he is born into a world of death, violence, wounds, adventure, heroism, and cowardice, good and evil. But we are born into a world like that. And hiding it from children actually hinders them. Since it is so likely that they will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. By confining your child to blameless stories of child life, in which nothing at all alarming ever happens, you succeed in banishing all that can ennoble them or make them endurable. It would be nice if no little boy in bed hearing a sound were ever at all frightened. But if he's gonna be frightened, I think it's better that he should think of giants and dragons than merely of burglars. And I think any bright champion in armor is a better comfort than the idea of the police. Fairy tales, Lewis said, are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. And here's the whole point. Here's what you want to equip your kid with. Here's what you want to equip your life with. There's darkness. And you know what? The human soul feels it. The kids know something is wrong. My father passed away about 4.5 years ago, and my daughter, who was about three and a half at the time, 4, she felt it. She cried with me. She knew something was wrong with the universe. And you felt that if you've lost someone close to you or you just go, man, it feels like it's not right. Because something, what would ever cause your soul to go, there's something wrong about this, it's if you had the idea implanted in you that there was the way the universe was supposed to be. Without that, then you just go, if you were just a development of millions of years, then what you would do is you would go, oh, this is just nature, red in tooth and claw. My dad dies, kids, it's not a big deal. You would never go, man, there's something wrong. She felt it at a soul level. Now, the other thing is this. If we don't know about our own lostness, we're never gonna go, man, I need the light. If you never know about your own need, you're never gonna go, I need the light. That's why Jesus told those parables about lostness. That's why he said, hey, listen, there's coins and there's sheep and there's lost sons. Now, I'm not saying, and here's what people complicate Christianity. They think that Christianity is saying that you're gonna know that you're lost. When Jesus told these parables, a coin doesn't know it's lost. A coin doesn't sit having rolled under a couch and go, I'm lost, someone save me. A sheep doesn't know it's lost. I was in India, I watched sheep. They're dumb. They just like, hey, this guy's going over a cliff. Guess I'm going, yeah. That's what they do, that's what sheep do. They're not conscious and self-aware enough to go, I think I'm lost right now. They need the voice. They need the voice of the leader to guide them and love them and show they're dependent. So I'm not telling you that you walked in here and you woke up this morning and you went, man, I need God. I got a God-shaped hole in me that I need filling, and so I got to find a church. And you woke up and searched out, where can I go to a church and learn about my own, That's not what happened. Because that's not what happened with me. If you had walked up to me, as people did when I was 17, 18 years old, here's the thing, I divided my time between stealing, doing dope, stealing money to do more dope, throwing rocks through people's windows to take money for more dope. The first time I ever did drugs, I was 9 years old. A guy came around our neighborhood and he introduced all of us to drugs, and that messed us up for a while. I lived my life between all of that. You walk up to me when I'm 17, 18 years old and you go, hey man, do you feel lost? I'm good. I'm fine. I don't need, until I was 18, when Chris Watt walked up to me and he said, I was in woodworking class. In high school, I could take woodworking. That was a class. And I took it because my options were like weightlifting or woodworking. So I was like, I'll go with the woodworking. But that was like a divine thing, man, because then Chris Watt walked up to me, he goes, hey man, listen, I know you feel fine. I know you feel like everything's good in your life, man. But you know what Jesus would say about you? You know what your predicament is? You're lost, but you don't feel it. You need the light. There's a lostness about you. There's a brokenness. And so I remember I would go around in the fields near my house and I would just read the Bible for the first time. I would really read it. And I remember reading Romans chapter 3 and Paul was like, man, all have sinned. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't feel like I've sinned. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. I'm like, is that me? Is that really me? And so the more I started to learn about my spiritual state of brokenness and lostness, the more I started to go, okay, well, I need something then. And that's the third thing that I learned about. The third major theme was hope. Here's the hope in the verse. The light shines in the darkness. Okay, so I'm lost. So you're lost. You're broken. You're spiritually disconnected from God. What are you going to do? You know what religion would tell you? Earn it. Work. Go to this temple. Play with these beads. Memorize this. Help this many old people. Do this. And then you'll earn it. And what did this verse just say? The light moved first. The light came to the darkness. God didn't sit back and wait for you to earn it in front of him. Because you know what that'll do over time? You know what a mentality of earning it will do? This is what earning it does versus the gospel, which says Jesus earned it for you. The gospel says earn it. This is how we're going to live our life. Hey, Tommy, it's time to be the hero of your own story. Hey, Tommy, I know you're scared. Find it within you, Tommy. Don't be scared. Be brave. You can do it. It's within you. This is the popular narrative of our culture, right? The divinity's in you. Find it in you. Just pull it out. You're going to be brave. You're going to be courageous. You're going to pull up your moral bootstraps. You're going to save yourself. And the gospel comes in and goes, no. Jesus is courageous for you. You're not the hero of your own story. Jesus is. That's what the cross, that's what this symbol, you know what the symbol says? It says, look what I had to do because you couldn't earn it. That's the point. The light had to come into the darkness. The light had to come and die for you because you can't earn it. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how many times you come to this place. It doesn't matter how many times you give money. It doesn't matter how many times you help on the parking team, which we desperately need help with, by the way, as you can tell. It doesn't matter. Hope. This is the hope. This is the hope. Now, whether you believe this or not is not my question. It happened. The question is, what do you do with it? Hope gives you meaning in the present that you never even expected. Hope is the thing that goes, you see the lostness, you see the tragedy, you see the pain. It can be, here's what the cross of resurrection says, it can reverse it. It can take all the tragedy and the pain of life and it says there's life on the other side of it. Yes, I suffered. I was 3 days in the ground, but I rose again for your salvation. Hope gives you something in the present. Now, let me illustrate this way. On Friday, a mother walked up to me and she told me, listen, this was the saddest thing I heard all week, but it was also reminding me why we exist as a church, why we do any of this. She said last year, there was a little girl, 5 years old. She came to summer camp. It was the first, our summer camp that we did, the Camp Rock summer camp. She said it was the first time she heard about Jesus in her life, 5 years old. Beautiful little girl, sent me a picture of her. 5 years old, came to summer camp. It was the first time she heard about Jesus. After day one, when she got so excited about who Jesus was and what he did for her, a teacher gave her a Bible and she went home and every day she would look to her father, who was an atheist, didn't want anything to do with this, and she would say, read me the Bible, Daddy. Read me the Bible. Read me the Bible. Read me the Bible. And so this atheist father had to open up this Bible and read his little girl the Bible. And every day she would wake up and she was ready to go, and she had her backpack on. If it was crazy hair day, she had her hair all done. And if it was neon day, she'd all neoned out. And just soared and loved Jesus. So got through the summer, and then in December, got meningitis, went into the hospital, and 3 days later died. And the mom, this woman showed me a Facebook message that the mom gave her, and it said, I'm seeing on Facebook all the videos and all the pictures of the kids at summer camp this year, and she would have loved it. And I wish she was here to enjoy it again. Now in that moment, man, what hope? What do you have? Jesus goes, in me is life. And those who believe in me, this little girl who took Jesus as her treasure and taught her parents about what it looks like to love and follow him, Jesus goes, you don't understand. She's not dead. She's more alive now than she's ever been. And the mom now, the dad in this life gets some kind of hope that, man, what am I gonna do with the fact that Jesus says there's something more than just a chest, a physical beating of a heart life. He says, I'm life. I'm life. I'm spiritual life. I'm life in a different way than you've defined life, your entire life, and I can give it to you. Now, what do you do with that? Well, what you do with it is you have options. You can say, I'm going to ignore it and forget it. Or the fourth day was about trust. And what trust means is verse 12 says, listen to this, because this is where everything shifts. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. What is your response to what this God has done for you? Believing in his name, trusting, taking it and accepting Christ into your life, saying, I'm gonna take this reality and I'm not just gonna leave it out here. Whether you believe it or not, it's true. And if you don't believe it, man, doesn't life and stories like that little girl's make you go, I want Christianity to be true, even if I don't believe it. Even if you're the biggest skeptic in here right now, all right? Even if you got posters, signed posters of Richard Dawkins above your bed, all right? Even if you're that guy, you should want Christianity to be true, or else there's nothing. And he says, so I came in the flesh and I showed you that there's something. And then I died and I rose again, and now the question is, are you going to receive him, believe in his name, and become a child of God or not? Because every other worldview will tell you it's on you. Earn it, Tommy. Earn it. Work harder. Memorize this, do this, do this, do this. And that is a weight, listen to me, that is a weight that you were never meant to bear. Because the gospel says he came and earned it for you. And now the question is, what do you do with that? And then when you receive it, which I had to do when I was 18, and this gospel started cutting at me and going, man, you sinned, you fell short. Then I had to go, okay, what does this mean? And then lastly, what happens when you receive it, once you trust to it, once you go, okay, I accept this, that I can't earn it, that Jesus has earned it for me, so I'm gonna trust in him. That it's not about all of the things that I did, it's about what he's done for me. It's about what he's done for me. What? You're early. Fired. All right. That's the guy. I've been thinking, who are we gonna fire? That's it. He doesn't work here, so we can't. Okay. Verse 15 says this. I'm trying not to get distracted by that. Verse 15 says this. So if I receive this, if I confess then what? What do I do? Do I just go to heaven when I die? Do I just sit around? Do I just retire? Celebration, verse 15. John bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me ranks before me because he was before me." Here's what just happened in John's life. His life was about him. He came to know Jesus. He received him. And then he says, now I'm swept up in a story bigger than myself, that now my whole life is about pointing to him instead of me. Celebration. Celebration in something bigger than you, that your life changes in the now. Jesus came and he said, man, I want to give you life, but I want to give you life abundant. I don't want to just give you life and then you kind of dredge along. It's like, oh, I'm sacrificing for it. I'm giving you joy, pleasure. This is the great thing about Christianity, that God works through Jesus to give you the ultimate pleasure. And we talk often here about that the number one motivating factor in your life is pleasure. That's it. Now, we don't say that, like you don't get up in front of people at your wedding and go, I'm marrying you for my own pleasure. That's not what we say. But that's why. Now, Christianity comes along and says, that's okay. But your reception of Jesus isn't something other than that. It's actually the means by which you get the greatest joy, the means by which you get the greatest pleasure. And that's why then your life becomes about pointing everybody to him, like John. Now I'm celebrating. My life's about him. My life's about him. My life's about him. So then the question becomes, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? Do you know why some of us in this room haven't believed this amazing truth about history and reality? You know why? It's not because you can't think, because you're thinkers. It's not because you can't walk around. It's not because you're not alive. I mean, all of you are alive. You go to work, you live your life. You can see, you get, physically, you can see, you can think, you can do all those things. Here's what he says in verse 4. In him was life, and then a verse that confused, and the life was the light of men. What does that mean? It means if we've never come to a place where we've believed this, your problem is not that you can't think. It's not that you can't walk around. It's that you can't spiritually see yet. How do you get the life? It's the light. Meaning this, you've never seen Jesus as the ultimate treasure in your life. You've never seen the cross as the ultimate gem of everything. You've never even come to that place. You just don't care. You don't care. He's just a person. He's a prophet. He's a thinker. He's a whatever. Doesn't stir your soul and say, and this is why when we baptize people, we say, do you receive Jesus not only as your Lord, not only as your Savior, but as your what? As your treasure. What does it mean to see? It means, because we want you to like him. We want him to be your ultimate joy, to be able to see. And so my prayer is that hearts in here, maybe who have seen, but they need to see more of him, treasure him more, would, and then hearts that never have would, on the spot, believe. Father, it is my honest prayer that minds and hearts that need to have Jesus as hero versus us as hero would in this even in a moment like this, would be able to just hone in and focus in on what you've been saying, how you're stirring them, what truths you're bringing to light, so that you would be the light of men, that we would be able to respond and believe and trust and hope and celebrate in everything that you've done, because you are the hero and we are not. And we need to become like kids and trust that fact so that we get life, and life abundant and life eternal and life full. Let us celebrate that reality. And I pray in a moment like this that we would recognize the weight and the stakes, and it would change us and not just be another day. In Jesus' great name we pray, amen.